All right, so everyone, we have a special guest tonight on the show. Dragon Turtle Games is here with us live and a very early morning for him over in England. Where in England are you, if you don't mind my asking?
I'm in Southend, about an hour outside of London. It's currently 5:28 a.m. here.
Ah, okay, so you are 5 hours ahead. Gotcha. All right. Well, good morning to you, and for all of us here, well, I guess we're burning the midnight oil. It's only 12:30 here in Eastern Time in Ohio, and there's others who are even further back in time. Tell me, Dragon Turtle Games, do you all have flying cars yet in the future?
We do not, but there is a nuclear war going on.
Oh, geez. Well,
Yeah, it's a rough 5 hours.
well, I guess we'll have to brace for impact here in the Eastern Time Zone. We'll get around to it eventually. Don't worry. All right. So you had talked a little bit. Well, I mean, at the prompt here about where you're at. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about who you are as a person? Then kind of bleed that over into who you are as a creator.
Yeah, well, my name's Rob, as I'm sure a lot of you know. A lot of you probably don't as well. I grew up in England. Didn't really go, except on holiday, didn't really travel more than 5 or 10 miles from my hometown. But played a lot of D&D and tabletop games, a lot of that stuff.
And what got you then into going from playing and consuming into producing?
It was actually my players. My players were urging me to publish some of their stuff. I think they overestimated my ability because most of them were first-time players, so they thought everything I wrote was just absolutely fantastic. And I was unemployed at the time, and I was in Hong Kong, um, just on like a holiday, and I just saw the work ethic out there, and I thought, there's all these people working so hard to get up like 6 a.m. and go to bed like 12 midnight.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, why can't I do that? Instead of just sitting around looking for another job. So I started Dragon Turtle Games. It cost me £30. That's £30 to start, which I think is about $45.
And as a quick aside, then, why did you choose the name Dragon Turtle? Is that a monster that holds relevance to you? That is an iconic monster in the D&D manual.
Yeah, it's absolutely iconic. And about a week before I started the company, I killed my entire party with a dragon turtle.
Okay, that does explain it. And it actually looks like right now we're seeing the fruits of your labors here. I have your drive-through RPG webpage open. Pardon me, I got to plug in my headphones. They're beeping at me. Okay, there we go. So, how long have you been publishing then?
18 months.
Wow. Well then, and you have a lot that's up here at Drive Through, and
Yeah, I've been busy.
for those who aren't familiar with Drive Through RPG, or do you have anything on DM Guild also?
We don't have anything on DM's Guild because of the way the copyright works. If we sell stuff on DM's Guild, ultimately Wizards of the Coast owns the copyright to it, not us.
Oh, gotcha. And that'll be maybe a question for a little bit down the road when we get into some of the considerations when you want to take your own homebrew ideas and you want to publish them in an open marketplace. Yep, he does actually. Plunderloot made a good point. You are on Kickstarter too, and I can pop over to that real quick. I'll do so after another question here. So for Drive Through RPG, this is a marketplace that has the content that you've made, and if I recall correctly from what you're saying, you started this because your players were encouraging you to, and this is a way for you to enact your own self-destiny. You wanted to be self-employed doing something that you like, and you're putting your time and effort and passion into it. Especially as it sounds like, I mean, you have a family life too that you have to juggle. You don't have to get into personal details, but it does sound like that's it's not just you and a desk.
it would be a lot easier if it was me at a desk. But no, I got I got married 2 years ago this month, and we just had a baby girl in February.
Oh.
So I don't sleep much anyway. So being up at 5 a.m. is not a big deal.
Yes. Well, then I guess you're making a good use. In fact, you're up a little earlier because of that, and so in this case, we'll thank your daughter for helping you be up for this segment because I know it's super early for you.
Yeah, yeah, she deserves all the credit here. It reminds me of a Brandon Sanderson quote, since her birth, that was, I think, at the beginning of one of the Mistborn books. He says, "I'd like to thank my wife and children. Without them, this book would have been released 5 years earlier."
I like that quote. It looks like Plunderloot said that you know Mr. Plunderloot?
I do know Plunderloo. He's one of the moderators on my Twitch channel, and he's actually just he helps a lot on there with the kind of campaign building I was doing on there for my previous campaign before all my player characters died.
Oh no. Well then, to you and Mr. Plunderloot, because he's been a great part of this community too. I thank both of you for ultimately finding your way and for allowing me to share in the things that you all have been doing this whole time. Dragon Turtle, I did put a link to your Twitch in chat, and I'll be dropping some other links for everyone too as we go through our interview process and your explanation of things. Plunderloot says it was quite fun to have that style of game, as you also do, to me. Making a world is such a fun time. Oh, it very much can be. And I think we're going to springboard off of that. You found my way here. Oh, and you found your way here, care of Derek, Macabre Derek, who has also contributed to the channel too. You all are a very wonderful bunch, and I'm very happy to have been able to meet you in my own personal journey on Twitch. Let's springboard. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, real quick. Let's springboard off of that. And do you want to talk about the Kickstarter that Mr. Plunderloot talked about?
Yeah,
that he brought up.
I'm currently running a Kickstarter called Dangerous Descents. You're very close with the name Dangerous Delves there, Plunder. And so this is a series of super lethal kind of Gygaxian style adventures for 5th edition. Basically, you don't play these with characters that your players like because they won't come out the other side.
Well, maybe not of the dungeon, but of a monster after a day or two, probably.
Yeah.
Would you be able to explain? Is we probably have some people who are new to D&D. When you say Gygaxian, what is this adjective?
So Gygaxian means in the style of Gary Gygax, the original founder, author of Dungeons and Dragons. He wrote these kind of, in the 70s, he wrote these dungeons where the main goal was just getting XP, getting treasure, and not dying. This was before the days of proper role-playing. And although I love proper role-playing, there was this huge gap, I felt, these kind of old school adventures like this, where the main goal is to just survive and get as much treasure as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But you see the tagline there is bring your barge poles, bring your healer, bring multiple character sheets.
and yes, I think that the barge poles especially, or the 10-foot poles, as it's been referenced as well, we don't see a lot of that in these newer editions. And well, they had a very specific purpose in older editions, more than just bringing a barge down a river.
Oh yeah, you're gonna need them for this.
All right, so I'm scrolling down. I see there's your tagline here. What would you like to focus on? I have your Kickstarter open. Point me to where you'd like to go and to discuss you're a creator. What was going through your mind? Take us on a tour, if you will.
So do you mean a tour of how I came about the idea or how I started formulating it?
Well, unless this was spawned from a different need, I think you touched on that because there was a niche in the market to run these older style, very like lethal, almost like a DM versus PC adventure, to test how clever you are, your wits. This when what I don't know. Take us through what we would get as a part of this content. If I were to back you and I'm receiving this, what put me in the mood? Put me in what was going through your mind. Make us you as you're probably at your keyboard going, oh, this is gonna get everyone. You probably had a couple devilish smiles along the way.
I don't think I stopped having a devilish smile the whole time. So basically, this was inspired because for my own home group, I ran Tomb of Horrors, which it's just the ultimate old school adventure, and my players survived, and I was so impressed with that. I thought, there's all this negative hype around these old adventures, saying, it's all about the role play, but they had such a great time. One of the best sessions we've ever had. And I think these are great sessions for just getting together with a group of friends, having a couple of characters ready, getting a few beers, getting a glass of wine or whatever, and just running through these adventures and just hoping you don't get squished.
It's a D&D hard mode.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. These have been great fun in the playtest. It's a lot more lively than normal D&D stuff because people are their characters are getting blown up and stuff, and they're like, so it gets really high energy.
Yeah. Oh, I can feel the tension as I imagine this. Now I'm a seasoned D&D player, so I think it might be a little bit more visceral. And Bubonic is certainly an old school D&D player himself. When we were talking about these concepts, already in our minds, I'm sure we're kind of clenching up a bit, or our fight or flight instincts are starting to kick in as we imagine situations we've been in like this before.
Yeah, I can give you guys an example of one of the traps. On this one you're looking at right now, that's from Barrow Hall, which isn't actually included in this adventures.
Okay.
But that was just an example of the layout.
Would you like me to bring up? There's one, the Shadows Below Cadicium. Would you like me to bring that one up?
Yeah, Shadows Below Cadicium. That's one I'm currently writing at the moment. Well, not right now, because obviously I'm on streaming.
Yeah. It's and by the way, as I'm seeing levels indicating is level 3, is this indicating level 3 characters are appropriate, or is this one
Level
big
3
dungeon and you're
characters,
going down levels?
No, this is the character levels.
Okay. So we're looking at a character level 3 dungeon right now. I did click over to Shadows Below Cadicium. Would you like to walk us through so take us on the creative process. When you are making this, if you're giving advice to new DMs, new PCs, we see a map and maybe we don't understand what goes into it. We can say, oh, that looks pretty, or oh, I think I get it. But there's another layer below that also. And can you take us through this process as you take us also through the Shadows Below Cadicium?
Yeah, so this particular map is a promo image. As you can see, it's lacking it's lacking color, it's lacking some details, it's lacking room numbers and stuff like that. But for the purpose of showing off art style is really what this is all about. And as you can see, these kind of, you get these squares here with crosses through them. Now these are pitfall traps, or perhaps ceiling collapse traps.
Okay.
These activate when players step on them, and they're very hard to see, usually around 20 passive perception to see them. So certainly not something a level 3 character should have.
Not in a passive anyway.
No, so I mean, if players are just opening doors, you see that the top right room there is where you start. If players just open doors and walk through, or they check the door for traps, they're not going to find anything, and they're just going to fall straight to their deaths. Pretty much.
Welcome to the adventure. Ah.
Yeah. So the point there is to right from the beginning, people are paranoid. They're checking that first room for traps, and they're like, okay, there's nothing in here. Cool. The doors are fine. And then as soon as they enter the dungeon proper, the hallways, someone's going to die or get seriously injured unless they're careful. and that really sets the tone for the whole adventure. Like, you cannot relax.
Let's say that we did survive exploring this top right room, this room number 1. You've used you said the squares with the X's over them are a pitfall or a ceiling fall trap.
Yes.
If we make our way, let's take the diagonal tunnel. If we continue going to the left, we somehow survive your first trap up here beyond the door, and we're going southwest on this diagonal. What's this band going across it? Or what are some of the symbols that you've also used to indicate the presence of things?
Okay, so the cross-hatching denotes stone. You know, that's the edge of the map. That just makes it very clear to everyone what's play area and what's not. As you can see, these kind of almost grid, instead of a grid, there are tiles drawn on here by hand in 5-foot squares. So this just denotes heavy stone tiles on the floor. This will all be included as really loud text for the Dungeon Master. But this band going above it, now that's a corridor above. You know, you can't see that.
So the dotted lines are showing that this diagonal passage is going underneath.
Goes underneath, yeah.
Okay, so we're continuing along. Oh, hey, this is a passage. Fortunately, it doesn't seem to be trapped. And we get to... Oh, go ahead.
See, as soon as the players enter this passage, there's a deadly trap. They're going to spend the rest of that passage very paranoid, checking every stone, and it's going to be nothing.
And then you get to a door.
And then you get to a door and a room filled with cultists. You know, and the door is fine. So they open the door, and there's kind of a trap behind it, a swinging log, which isn't on the map yet because this is only a promo version.
Yes.
And I don't want to give everything away because otherwise I don't want to buy it.
Correct.
There's a swinging log that comes down. If anyone opens the door without the key, you know, there is a keyhole in it, but it's unlocked. Because it doesn't lock, that just deactivates the trap. Right?
Ah, clever.
So you open the door towards you, and this log comes down, spiked log comes down and hits you. And suddenly you're in a room full of cultists, and you've taken a log to the face.
Oh my gosh. Is this just beyond the door? Is this a staircase? What are the small...
So the raised, the diagonal tiles there denote a raised area that's about 10 feet higher. And has a statue at the end from where this was its previous use as ruins, and 2 dining tables. This is the eating area for the cultists. Now around it has this kind of sunken corridor, and that's the level at which you enter. So you're at a disadvantage there because you're 10 feet below the cultists. There's only one point you can climb up.
Huh. So all right, so yeah, the perimeter is base level, and you have to ascend up, and that can make combat even more risky, especially. Well, if you get pushed over, that's a little extra damage you might end up taking. Or if nothing else, it's wasted moves as you're being peppered by these cultists. Very interesting.
Most of the danger comes from traps, but certainly this room, it mostly comes from the actual combat itself.
And it looks like you wanted to make this a living environment. I see in the upper left corner there are some beds, and so this is a used a place, a cult temple or a dormitory, or people live and do things here.
Yeah. So the adventure kind of background on this is that the cult of the Rotwaif, is operating in the ruins. They live there, and they're trying to summon this kind of mythical creature. They have actually summoned it, a bit of a spoiler alert there, but it's very weak. It is very weak, and the players may or may not know that. If they don't find the secret doors, they might not find the chamber in which the weakened wraith sits.
And you've denoted secret doors. It looks like they're primarily in the south, and that's the S that spans a passage?
That's right.
Okay.
So the player version of the map won't have any of these hidden rooms on it or any of the traps.
It sounds like while sometimes just having a meat grinder is preferable because you want the challenge, you have taken an extra step and you've put a story to it, so it's not just a meat grinder. You're actually there for a purpose, and you're doing things in an environment that's not just a random traps and can you survive in like a jigsaw killer style setup.
Yeah, so there's always four reasons, and this is a I don't know why I picked the number, but there's always four reasons why a character might be at one of these dungeons.
Okay.
Now, the one we're going with as an example is that you're sent there to investigate this claims that this Rockway Wraith has been summoned. Of course, you can be unsuccessful in that if you don't find the hidden doors. You can walk out and say no, it's definitely not there.
Mm-hmm.
So you could survive 90% of the dungeon and still ultimately failing your mission. And then from there, if your players are so lucky as to survive, that could lead into the start of a whole campaign.
What would be? Do you want to go into the other three reasons?
Well, I haven't written them yet.
Oh, okay.
For this one.
No, that's fine. So there are prompts, and you've written this dungeon in a way that can allow for several different ways to approach it. Or if I'm running a campaign and I want to do something different, I can run this dungeon as a module or as its own entity, and you're giving me multiple inroads for my players to be introduced to it.
Yeah, so you have these inroads in which you can send your players there, which also helps with this kind of endless stream of character sheets turning up, and they don't all have the same reason. You also have a couple of outroads. If your players survive, we tell you, we kind of give you a few hints on what you can do to turn the situation into a campaign.
And this is a consideration of when you're writing to publish or you're writing for a broad audience instead of just coming up with homebrew content for your people at your table on your game night.
Yeah, there are a million differences, and we can get into that now if you want.
I think that would be. I think that'd be great because I do want to explore creativity in the process with you, and there are differences between considerations we make in a purely private homebrew session, and the things that you would have to consider as a publisher. The first thing that comes to my mind is, what if we don't have a perceptive party? If I buy your, from a financial, I'm getting ahead of myself. If I buy your mod and I'm not a perceptive person, I'm buying it for the party and none of us are really good at that, can we still enjoy it if we can't uncover all your secrets? Can we still beat your dungeon? Are there different roads, and use that as a prompt and go from there?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to make an enjoyable dungeon for every party setup, right? Because when you're writing for your homebrew, you know what the party is. You know that they've got a bard, or or a party of all bards, for example. If they're following your streams here.
Is that that almost be the ultimate playtest, right? Can 5 bards get through this, and if so, how easily?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you right now they can't. Well, they might actually. They might. It depends how varied they are. So you've got to be able to make it so that no one class outshines the rest. So you don't want a dungeon where a rogue's going to be doing all of the work. You don't want a dungeon where a barbarian's going to be doing all of the work. It's got to be balanced with every single class in mind, which is a lot more work than just doing it for your party.
Yes.
And you got to play test it more.
Can you get a little bit into how your play tests went, or when you were doing this? Did you say, oh, the cult fight, so that's for fighters and barbarians or something, or this is for wizards who have AoE spells, or this is for warlocks with single target? Can you give a little bit of a breakdown there too?
Yeah, so what you normally do is you play test it twice with 2 groups of 4, and that covers pretty much every class in the game, and every player race, really, near enough. As well as doing that, it also helps you kind of refine the read aloud text, because something that you write down and it sounds great, but then when you actually read it aloud, you just stumble over words and whatnot. You can refine stuff. So you go into the cultist room, for example, here, And
Okay.
if you've got a party with no kind of melee combatants, you think, are they going to just die here? And the answer, if it's yes, then, well, you adjust the encounter so that they don't die, while still making it fun for melee characters. And that's where the kind of raised platform comes from, um, because you can get up there, and this is quite an interesting thing. I saw one of my players got up there. They all decided to get up there. They rushed it and pushed all the cultists off. So then they had the high ground, which is just, it's not something you consider when you write them. You can't consider all of this stuff because obviously players are unpredictable.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
They say that no plans survive contact with the players, and I absolutely agree with that.
Oh well, a plan is a list of things that can go wrong.
Yeah, you can't. One of the worst things I see people do for DMing a homebrew game, which is fine for a homebrew game, but would not work at all with publishing, is they make a trap
Okay.
or a puzzle, and then they come up with the solution.
Ah.
And what I mean by that is usually what you would do is you would throw in a trap or a puzzle, and then just whatever solution sounds good, you go with that.
And do you have to do things like when you're coming up with your flavor text? We look at I think dwarves were brought up. If you have a player who wants to use dwarven stone cunning in every single room, are you accounting for that in some sort of box text or flavor text, or
So
in a blurb at the beginning?
yeah, so at the beginning of each dungeon, you get details of, the type of material it's made with, the walls, the ceilings, the floors, and it usually says this is the default unless otherwise said. By
Okay.
default, this is grey stone. It was made in this year. It's now occupied by these people these years later, because obviously these are ruins. So it wasn't made by the cultists, but they've just moved in.
Mm-hmm.
So it served a previous role as a evil temple complex, but now it, to a different god, and now it's kind of all those statues have been vandalized, and the mosaics on the walls have been chipped off and stuff.
And I suppose that something else you have to consider is the pantheon of the people who are going to be playing through your mod might not match up to what you had in mind. So you have to be careful in how you're describing perhaps the symbols or the cults, because Orcus may not exist in this world or may not exist in the homebrew world, but Orcus could be an influence in this dungeon.
Yeah.
Did you put compatibility? How did you delve with cultural or religious differences between homebrew versus your mod?
So all of our adventures are setting agnostic, which means you can use them in any setting. There's a little guide at the beginning of each one on how to change elements to fit it into your campaign. Like I'll write out, you can't use any wizard's trademarks, so I can't use anything from the Forgotten Realms.
Right.
So I'll make up a generic orc god, and I'll just say it's orc god.
Right.
And then at the beginning it'd be like, oh, if you don't have an orc god, substitute it for this, substitute it for that, or substitute it for a suitable one. So nothing is so specific that you can't switch it out for something in your campaign.
And something else that I imagine that you've done too is have you given the monsters or NPCs a certain artificial intelligence? So if you want to balance the way that something is run, you can maybe make a note to a DM and say the cultists will never move past this point because it's a sacred line or something.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. They're also on cycles, so they're not. It depends on the time of day the players enter, how long they spend in a dungeon. The cultists aren't always going to be in the same place, right? Because they're moving around. They're not just sat in their areas waiting for
Oh,
players
so
to turn up.
you've even gone through a day-night cycle too. That's really cool.
Yeah, they put a cycle. Pretty much all of our dungeons have that, including kind of the first one I ever wrote, the Witch's Hideaway, has a pretty complicated cycle.
Hmm. That is, those are really good considerations, not just for a publisher, but for you as a homebrew DM or as a PC. Uh, you could bring that up. Let's default to the PC. It's easy to be a DM because what you say goes. As a PC, you can ask your DM, are things different at night in these woods? Do ghosts come out at night, or is there some sort of a fey presence that only makes itself known during eventide and morning tide, or what? Use the time of day as well, and I love it. I love hearing that level of detail.
Yeah, well, I mean, a great example is that uh, if the players are smart on this one, the cultists aren't going at night. Most of the cultists, or at least just over half of them, will be asleep in their beds, and they'll be running on a kind of skeleton crew.
So a lot more easy to take down if they're being sneaky about it.
Yeah, yeah, because they're mostly going to be in their bunks. Obviously, there's always cultists about. They sleep in shifts, but the majority sleep at night, or like 60%.
Golden asks, is PC a player character? And as Deathcount said, yep. And Golden says, I know what's up. Yeah, and you know what, Golden? I know that you're newer to D&D. Hopefully this kind of an interview, hearing this kind of content is helping you to learn the lingo. It's inspiring you as a PC or as a DM, a dungeon master. And you will want to look into mods like this. In fact, mods are an excellent way to begin playing. You have others such as Dragon Turtle Games here, who he's gone out of his way to balance content. I mean, if you say this is a level 3 dungeon, if you're playtesting it, then you would know average scores and challenge ratings and such. Not that it sounds like this is still slanted to be difficult, but this is a good way for you to cut your teeth as a DM on the game, because you don't have to worry about the environment. Dragon Turtle, in this case, has provided an environment for you. And not only that, has given the dungeon a culture, time cycle, and things that you can go by, you can read through a couple times, and really come to an understanding of what is content that could be brought up at a table.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out, as well as when we're on the subject of terminology, some people go and say GM instead of DM. It's the same thing. It just means Game Master instead of Dungeon Master.
Yep, or if you go over to World of Darkness, it's ST for Storyteller.
Yeah, I think if you go over to the Lord of the Rings 5th edition stuff, it's Lore Master, LM.
Ah, okay. all these synonyms.
I know. I just call everything a DM.
Now, I do want to bring up too. There are some considerations, and perhaps you've thought of them too, for this dungeon. While this is run at level 3, you have to be aware of not just abilities like stone cutting for dwarves, but all of the magics that are available to player characters at certain levels. For instance, there are some spells where you could just tell the stone to get out of the way, and you might be able to hop from a tunnel into a room by taking the shortcut. Is that stuff that you had to play test for or consider as well, Dragon Turtle?
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly do that, and you've got to have a pretty good grasp of spells and player abilities at each level to write these dungeons and these adventures, because you don't want your whole dungeon to be made worthless by one guy's ability.
Yeah.
But I usually like to keep 5 feet of stone. If you imagine each one of those squares is 5 feet, I draw these on hex paper, on a grid paper, and then I trace them again, and then I scan them in and edit them digitally. But I keep 5 feet of stone between each room, and the reason for that is, it's to stop a lot of spells. A lot of spells are kind of rendered useless if there's 5 feet of stone in the way.
Yeah, such as maybe some kinds of divination spells to be able to get an X-ray vision into the next room, things along those lines.
Yeah, 5 feet of stone is a good rule of thumb. If you do more than that on purpose, just to take away the player's abilities, you're kind of being a bit mean. But I just looked at what Wizards of the Coast did. I have everything Wizards of the Coast have released for 5th edition. I look at what they do to kind of get a rules of what is done, what is not done.
Mm-hmm.
because you can't. That's one of the most important things when you're publishing. You can't just guess. You can't just guess everything. You have to look at what the professionals are doing.
I would argue as well with content like this that you're creating, and we can go back and explore. You can talk about a couple of the other titles you've put out there, but especially for Dangerous Descents, this is meant to be challenging, not necessarily like DM versus PC in some lethal battle of attrition, but that does raise those fight or flight instincts that we talked about earlier, and so that might make your player characters more aggressive in their use of their spells, or in the spells that they take, or how creative they're going to be with those spells to try and get through certain situations.
Yeah, absolutely. And while this sometimes can be DM versus player, most of the times, when I've run these or I've seen people run these in playtesting, the DM has been very sympathetic to the players and has kind of been wincing at the kind of damage and stuff. They feel quite bad about it, but everyone's the DMs feel bad because they're killing players, and the players feel bad because their characters are dying.
Golden
It's
asked
shared suffering.
Golden asked a question here that I will defer to you as a creator to answer. How would they know if there was a shortcut there? And did you say X-ray? I mean, I said it, but if you want to tackle that concept for Golden, I'd appreciate it.
So, if you're talking about secret doors, players usually check the walls of a room or a corridor for anything that's out of whack. See these areas marked on the map with an S. Those are secret doors or secret corridors. Now, these can't be seen if you're just kind of walking past them. You don't notice them. But certainly, if you're feeling the wall and actively looking with a perception check or some kind of magic, you can find them. So that one, in the bottom left, the very lowest leftmost secret door going off a corridor, that is actually a mimic. Now, a mimic is a magical creature that takes the form of something. So in this case, it's just kind of propped itself at the end of a corridor and is pretending to be part of the wall. So if a player goes along kind of tapping the wall to try and find a secret door, they're going to get stuck to this thing, and it's going to try and eat them.
That's very devious. And
Yeah.
while I prompted it, I said X-ray. Is that something that you want to bring up as a spell consideration for making content?
So off the top of my head, it's very early morning for me. I can't think of any X-ray spells that work through stone. I think 1 inch of stone traditionally, or 2 inches of stone, blocks most magic.
But conceptually, there are spells that do allow for distanced sight, or
Yeah,
you
spells
can.
and class abilities as well.
Yep. And if I can address something to, I'm going to dovetail into what you're talking about, Dragon Turtle. You were going through natural exploration of secret passages. There's also, it's a type of metagaming, or using outside game knowledge. Now, a player and a player character might be able to justify it, but Golden, if I am your DM and I put out a 1-inch grid map, and I am slowly drawing this map. Let's start in the upper left corner at the entrance in the first room. And I describe, as I'm drawing out the map, you may see that on this map, there are large quote-unquote empty spaces. That is up to you as a player to... how would you not take your knowledge, your bird's eye view of a mine, of all the oxymorons, how can you not incorporate this burning curiosity of saying, look, there's this huge room with the 3 barrels, and then there's the 2 pitfall traps in the other corner here in the beginning. If we didn't see it before, I know it's not accurate to secret door that you're talking about, Dragon Turtle, but if you see this big gap between these original 2 tunnels, is there a shortcut? Can you span the 2? Where does it lead? Well, if you haven't discovered it yet, you might be using meta knowledge by looking at the map. How would your character conceptualize How would your character conceptualize what's there? How would your character want to look around more? Or even if you say something like, guys, I think there's something here. Why? What made you say that? Come up with an in-game reason, but don't just say that, because that's a form of metagaming.
Yeah, you could go ahead and pretend that your character's some kind of expert tracker, and they hear some rubble fall, or a mouse running, and you're like, oh, there must be something down there.
Mm-hmm.
There's all these reasons. But speaking of blank spaces on the map, you'll notice that if you took away the areas marked by secret passages, the map would not have any blank spaces. It would look like a complete map. And that's very much by design.
Yeah, so you'd get into these two kind of like kidney, or they almost look like they're the natural formations, so they're kind of like little organs.
Natural formations.
But you would just loop down, you'd loop south along the eastern wall. If you missed this secret passage in the along the right-hand side, you'd come up into this kind of stomach-looking chamber. You could cross over and get down into this maybe like a liver-looking chamber. And if you miss that other secret door, you would just continue into this octagon room.
Yeah, so it would fill up almost the whole grid paper, and you wouldn't assume just looking at the map, you wouldn't have the meta knowledge that those rooms were there.
Mm-hmm.
So you'd be in the same position as your characters. I think it's bad design when it's very obvious there's a secret room there from the map.
Yes, it because even the best players, with the best intentions, you've been gaming with them for 10 years, whatever. It's still that burning desire. It's very tough to fight that temptation, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I suggest doing, if you're designing, is draw the whole map first without the secret rooms, and make sure it all makes sense, and then add the secret rooms afterwards, so that it looks like an organic map without them.
And in fact, even if we go to the lower right-hand secret room, it could be possible that as you pass down from this kind of stomach room, and now we get into, I don't know, maybe this is more of a liver. I don't know what this other one would be. But we get to this southern room. If you don't, if for some reason, some way, somehow, you don't trigger this mimic door, you're going to miss this entire lower left-hand room. Because you'll say, oh, it's a secret room, and you go through it, and then you come back out through the other side, and now you're back up to where you would have been if you just went from the stomach room to this other room.
Yeah, and in that case, you missed the rock Wraith. Oh, I should have picked a name I can say, right?
Yeah.
You missed the whole reason you're there. And you just think, oh, so it was a rumor. They haven't actually summoned this thing. So you feel like you've discovered the secret room, and you're like, okay, well, there's not going to be another secret.
Right.
Right. So then that's actually a little trick from Tomb of Horrors. The same thing happens in Tomb of Horrors. You find a secret room that has like a fake boss in it, and then you're like, okay, cool, I defeated the boss. And then if you don't keep looking, you don't find the real boss. And I thought that was very Gygaxian thing to do. He used to do that all the time in his early adventures. And that's something I just lifted straight from Gary Gygax's playbook.
It's a lot of that. It's kind of it's not a versus in so much that I'm your DM trying to destroy my PCs, but it is kind of a chess game, a battle of wits between your DM and your players. One mind who knows everything versus several minds who might be able to break that concept in some form or fashion, or get around it, or get through it. And so it's not a battle of attrition, but it is a series of strategic moves. And that's I enjoy that. Now, if you don't mind, so we've explored this. We've gone through creative considerations, both for if we're building a dungeon for our own sake, or if we're going to build something because we want to throw our hat out there in the arena and possibly be able to sell something. Let's go over. So we talked about your Kickstarter, your current one here, which is Dangerous Descents, and you took us through the example of the Shadows Below Caduceum. Um, we started on Drive Through RPG, and it looks like you have a ton of different content. And specifically, it looks like you wanted me to highlight something called the Witch's Hideaway. Is that something that
So
you can discuss with us?
yeah, I will do. I'll just point out that on our current Kickstarter, you can pledge at £40, which I don't know what it is in dollars. It should come up on your screen because yours displays in dollars. But that gets everything we've ever written. You know, all of our supplements plus the current one for just £40. I think it's worth like over 100.
Let me see if it converts it. That it's offering it in pounds to. Oh, it says here we go. It's about 54 US dollars.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not cheap, but it is for what you get. You get like over 20 supplements.
Yeah, I'm. Is that everything that's in drive through that I'm looking at here right now?
That is everything that's in drive-through and all of our unpublished stuff. Because we each Kickstarter campaign we release Kickstarter exclusive stuff. So there's about 4 or 5 exclusive adventures, and there's some Kickstarter exclusive supplements that you cannot get any other way except by backing our Kickstarters.
That's a lot of. That is a lot of content that you have up here.
Oh yeah, it's been a really busy 18 months.
Yeah, I'll say so. And then, real quick, I would like to point out to the audience that I think we met because we were talking about. Well, I was talking with another member of our community who is running Tomb of Annihilation, and there's a part there where you have a dragon and some dropping going on. Players can fall from a great height. I don't try and spoil too much here. And we were talking about it's a drag and drop, kind of like a click and drag, like a command. Although and so it's drag and drop, or in this case it was a dragon drop. And I think we met on that evening or thereabouts.
Yeah,
And you said, "Hey, I have drag and drop adventures." Where did that come from?
Well, I had a load of different ideas because I wanted these adventures that you could literally drag and drop into your campaign. That's just drag and drop adventures.
Oh.
Um, they can fit into any campaign. They're designed to be, if your players wander off course, you haven't prepared anything. You can grab one of these, read it like 5 minutes before the session, insert it into your campaign as a kind of side quest, and it's all nicely tied up by the end of the session, and the story's over. But it's interesting and fun. And I was kind of just scrambling for names, and everything I came up with, it seemed like someone had already done. And then I said, oh, these kind of drag and drop adventures. And I was like, hang on, drag and drop. And I would like to point out that I released these before Tomb of Annihilation.
Gotcha.
I was not inspired by them, but I was happy to see a drag and drop things in that. So
Well,
this one here, The Witch's Hideaway,
Yes.
this was the first ever one I wrote, and it's for level 2 characters.
Okay.
And I wrote this while I was in Hong Kong. And there's a lot of stuff in here that I would do differently now, but this is actually quite popular. People love it. The artwork's fantastic. I'm very proud of it, but it's not the quality's higher now.
Delcorin is wondering where you got a picture of his ex-girlfriend.
Well, it's actually my sister was the artist for the drag and drop stuff, and she must have maybe your ex-girlfriend was posting like pictures online, and my sister used one as a reference. I don't know, but that is a witch. I think called Bloodside. I can't remember exactly her name. It's been so long. Well, it's not been that long, but I've been busy. And she's been corrupted by null magic. So she's human, but she's taking on these null features.
Oh, we have a resident Knoll in our community. I don't know if he's online right now, but I'll have to make sure that Norton the Knoll, who hangs out with us time and again, sees this. He might take an interest.
Yeah. You can set them up. I think she's single.
And by the way, Delcorin said it wouldn't surprise him if she posted pictures of. All right, but anyway, so let's going through this here. This is the blurb about Drag and Drop Adventures. You're giving a background, and so this is what the DM should. This is the core that the DM knows and will slowly reveal to the to the PCs.
Absolutely. Okay. Dewfinger is the character name. Bloodside was one of the options I had. but that turned out to be copyright.
Oh, okay.
It's from a Doctor Who episode. I didn't realize.
Actually, that's a good side point. For those of us who do want to create, I mean, we have unlimited license. We can cherry pick from anime and fantasy novels and comics. Is there a resource that you use as a publisher that can help check our content versus intellectual property that exists so that we don't even inadvertently get in trouble?
So the answer to that is no. You just have to Google everything and be really thorough and do all different spellings. For my first adventure, I had a kind of the first Kickstarter. I had a rewards here where you could get a custom dungeon made. You could pay me a certain amount, and I'd make you a whole dungeon, complete with artwork and everything. And the guy gave me some details, and then he gave me some names. And I thought, okay, this is all cool stuff. And I made the dungeon, and I was ready to publish it when one of my friends said to me, "Hey, that's from this thing, this comic I read."
Mm-hmm.
And the guy had plagiarized the whole plot of a comic book, including the character names, but just changed the spellings.
Oh.
So I was so close to publishing this thing that was just completely stolen. And it wasn't coming up on Google, obviously, because the spellings were different. But that was very close. So that's just kind of one of the risks you take.
So yeah, just as you're an adventurer going through a dungeon, publishing can be a dungeon crawl also.
Yeah, there's a great resource for if you want to make sure you're not breaking any Wizards of the Coast rules, called the Open Game License. It's quite a big document, but it has everything you're allowed to use for publishing and everything you're not. So, for instance, you can use certain monsters and certain classes and certain races. But if you just do a Control F search through that document, for example, Drow, you can't use. I think you can use Drow, so that was a bad example. But if you search through there for like a Beholder, if you do Control F and search Beholder, it won't come up in that document because Beholder is not part of the Open Game License. You cannot use it, or Wizards of the Coast will take all your profits.
Yes.
But you can use that on DM's Guild because Wizards of the Coast own everything on DM's Guild.
Oh, is DM Guild? Is it not a profit sharing?
So you basically write adventures or supplements, and you're allowed to use Wizards of the Coast intellectual property, but they take a big cut of the profits.
Okay.
And you can't sell it anywhere else. You can't sell it in stores or at conventions or on your own website, and you can't put it on Kickstarter.
Okay, so it's an exclusivity thing.
Yeah. So, but I mean, you don't own your own copyright there.
Okay.
So you're making stuff for Wizards, and you take royalties essentially.
Well, that is good to note, and I do appreciate you as part of this conversation bringing that up, because if we do have prospective writers or content generators in the audience, these are things we have to know, and if people can learn either from the speed bumps you've hit or even the mistakes that you've made as a publisher, we're all going to win, and we're going to be better prepared, and we'll be a more solid community for it.
So one of the interesting things is that DM's Guild generates a lot more sales than Drive for RPG.
Mm-hmm.
Like by a factor of 10 or 20. So while you don't own the copyright, you're making a lot more money from royalties. But I make most of my money from the Kickstarter campaign, so I would make less money on DM's Guild than I do on Drive for RPG. But DM's Guild is really good. If you don't want to kickstart, if you just want to write something and publish it, you're going to make more money doing it through DM's Guild than through Drive for RPG.
Yeah, over at DM's Guild right now, just taking a look, this is people who make, there's 10 magic items that are homebrew, different character record sheets, there's a player's companion. In a way, it's a platform almost like Twitch is. I mean, Twitch is offering you this platform, and they do take a cut of the revenue that is made on it, and but they're going to give you traffic, presumably.
Yeah. If you look at Drive for RPG and DM's Guild side by side, you'll notice they are almost identical, and that's because it's the same company that owns both, and that's a company called One Book Publishing.
Okay.
And And to be honest, I think they need to update their design because it's very like 2000, 2005.
All right, so let's go back real quick. Take us through the witch's hideaway. We went through the background. Witch named Dewfinger has recently taken up residence at Raven's Court ruins, bringing with her a small group of bandits and gnolls. The witch is planning on sacrificing a child to complete a ritual granting her eternal youth. Meanwhile, a member of her bandits, led by the gnoll Prack, have taken advantage of some locally grown herbs to create a powerful narcotic called Red Flower, which they are selling to nearby villagers. And you talk about how you can customize it, and it looks like there's some setup here. Can you take us quickly on the adventure and where you'd like me to go as you present us? Take us on a sort of a haunted house tour. Like we'll sit in the car and you take us through it, if you don't mind.
So at the very first page, the one that has the kind of adventure background, that sums up the kind of start of the adventure for the Dungeon Master. That's not like read out to the players. The text in red is read out to the players, which now has its own separate boxes, and it's all better formatted than this now, but it worked very well back then. And as you can see, kind of the village where you start and character names are left blank. So you could, for example, have this happening just outside your player's main village in your campaign, and just like, oh, I can't be bothered running something this week or writing something, or I've been busy, or my kid's been sick all week, so I haven't been able to do anything. You could grab this, and you've got this kind of two storylines happening at once, and they're intertwined, where a group of gnolls are selling narcotics, and a witch is kidnapping children. So it starts in an inn, you know, and this kind of stuff happens. A guy runs in, he says, my daughter's been kidnapped. You don't have to start it this way. You can get them there however you want. This is just a suggestion. He says, my daughter's been kidnapped. They're outside. So you run in there, run out there, and you fight the people, and you save his daughter Rosie. And then you find out that these thugs are carrying, you know, all of these kind of coin-like tokens, and the townsfolk will be able to tell you, oh, I've seen these thugs hanging around the Raven's Court ruins. So then you can go and investigate why they were trying to kidnap this girl. And that gets you to the adventure site, and the adventure site is really where the adventure is.
And so that brings us to page 5 here, the Raven's Court ruins. You give some features and... Oh, I see. So there's a map on the next page. Oh, it actually looks like you've provided a DM map and a player map.
Yeah, all of our adventures have both.
Would you explain to those who may not know the difference what that is or what it does?
So the player map doesn't feature room numbers. It doesn't feature kind of any hidden corridors or traps, as you can see from the difference. So this would be like if you wanted to print off each room separately or give them the whole map if you trust them not to metagame, you can do that. And the DM map at the top gives you a lot more details, like locations of traps, room names, so that you can reference them from the coming pages, and secret corridors. So there's a few differences that are important and not so important as well.
And as they make their way through, you have F1 clearing, so as they come in through there, we would find F1 on our DM map, right?
That's something I wouldn't do again. So normally I would say I wouldn't label it F1. I would just say outside, because that's not part of the map.
I was looking for it here, yeah. So that would just be outside, and then when they go in, that's outside. R1.
That goes down into R1, yeah.
Okay. The stairs lead down into the southern section of a 6-sided room. A double set of ornate brass doors, now green with age, stand on the north wall, while 4 small monstrous statues adorn the others. I read that out loud both because I like box text, just personally. And I believe this is something else for people to consider. Not all games are played on battle maps. And so if you're a DM or you're a producer of game content, if you want to have a narrative like that, make sure that you include relevant details to paint the picture in the mind's eye of your players.
Yeah, you absolutely have to, and do not bog them down. You don't want to be reading like a couple of paragraphs because players don't pay attention. You want 2, 3, or 4 sentences maximum for that.
Yes. That is very solid advice. In this case, you made the shape of the room and you mentioned 1 or 2 of the features.
Yeah, pretty much everything you need to know: the shape of the room, the doors, and the statues. Everything else they can kind of inspect, and you can tell them, oh, the ceilings are 10 feet high, the doors are locked, it's dark granite floors. If they ask, but you don't need to tell them that because they
Yep.
can just fill in the blanks.
And whether or not you do it purposely as a DM, if you have keen players, they might ask those questions to figure it out. Or if they say, "Oh, so there's some there's some oxidation or whatever, there's some verdigris on the doors. I want to look at the doors. Are there any scratch marks or showing where it's flaked off?" And so you as a DM, maybe you're prepared for that or not. But in this, it's still, you gave this quick and simple description that sent your players' minds whirring. And suddenly you can say, you perceive, and it looks like there are scratch marks of some kind of an animal, although they're a little higher up than an animal would normally make on a door. And so maybe that represents the gnolls. I didn't read ahead, but maybe that represents the gnolls pushing the door open. Their claws are scraping on the brass door, but it's scraping off the verdigris. And so it's a clue as to what lies ahead. But you didn't feed it. You didn't feed it directly to your players. Instead, they're going to feel rewarded with that information because they thought outside of the text box.
Absolutely. These adventures are not meant to be the be all and end all. So, like, if it doesn't say that there's scratch marks here, it doesn't mean that there aren't scratch marks. It's your game. It just means that there aren't scratch marks for everyone.
And so you continue down R2, R3 as they're making their way through. Here you're calling for various wisdom perception checks. These are balanced against the level concept of the mod manufacturing plant, and so you're telling a tale, even if they don't notice anything else, because you have to plan for the minimum and the maximum. Plan for the worst, hope for the best. You should still be able to narrate basic things enough to tell a story to even the most imperceptive of parties.
Yeah, there should be as well. It's worth mentioning that for published adventures, there should be at least 2 storylines coexisting in each dungeon or adventure site. Otherwise, players get bored. In this case, it's the kind of Breaking Bad style factory setup and selling of that the witch is not caring about, and also the witch doing her kind of summonings and whatnot.
Yeah, so she's later on, but you take him on this adventure through this little temple, and that's even a good 1-2 combo, because suddenly your party's like, oh, okay, we're dealing with drug dealers and thugs, and suddenly the witch might fall out of their brains, and when the realization hits, oh, there's a witch. We might have been expecting something else, or it's a good reminder of, oh, this is going on too. Oh, shoot.
She brought in these gnolls just as hired goons, really, and they realized that there's plenty of ingredients here that they can run their operation, a little side gig, because there's a lot of downtime for hired goons, right? There's a lot of just sitting around waiting for adventurers to turn up. So they feel like, okay, well, we can make a bit of money on the side using the kind of stuff from your ritual that you're not using, the kind of byproducts. And she's like, okay, I don't care.
Yeah.
Just don't get in my way.
Exactly. Yeah. Do my bidding. Don't get in my way. And
yeah. Sell drugs as much as you want, but let me sacrifice children.
And then we build up to the grand finale, and you have on the back end here, you have what's next, and this is presuming perhaps a couple different behaviors of the party.
Yeah, this gives examples of like if they sorry, yeah, let me read it again. I haven't read this for like a year.
No, that's fine. Yeah, or if you'd like, I could narrate.
Yeah, you can go ahead and narrate that. I'm like I said, I'm half asleep.
Yeah, it's early morning for you, and we're getting to the end of the cycle here, so you can get some sleep here. So we've gone through, we've discovered this drug manufacturing process, and we've presumably put down this witch that is wanting to sacrifice kids to maintain eternal youth. And so Dragon Turtle at the end here has given you a couple options. If the party returns to the village after defeating Dewfinger, which is the witch, Rosie's father will reward them with 50 gold pieces and offer them free lodging at his family home whenever they're in the area. Kind of a nice little
Great reward.
background feature.
Yeah, it's great reward for a level 3 party as well, a level 2 party. That's a lot of money, and it's a great place to stay.
And as a DM, if you don't have to play the accounting minigame, if you just know, oh yeah, they can feed you if you're in town, oh, that saves a lot of time. Now, you do continue and say, if you intend on using this adventure as a seed for future ones, you could use the following plot hooks or add your own. There's Prack's Note. Prack's Note gives the party details about other criminals in the nearby area. The party may take it upon themselves to take care of these criminals, or you could have it connect to a larger storyline. There's the red flower, the drug. Several villagers have become heavily addicted to red flower, and with the defeat of Dewfinger and her bandits, small-time manufacturers and suppliers have stepped up to meet demand. So a lot of low-level theft.
An interesting thing about that one is I saw someone playing this campaign on Twitch, and their players stepped in to fill the demand, and it became a drug dealing.
Oh,
campaign.
wow.
They had this whole lab and all these suppliers, and they're like, "Hey, we can take over this operation.
We'll sell the drugs and not sacrifice kids." And yeah. And it's a base of operations too, right?
Yeah. You get this base. It's already mapped out. It's well defended. You know where all the traps are.
And that is another consideration as a DM and especially as a publisher. You're not going to get lawful good parties all the time going through your campaign. Can your campaign support evil choices, immoral choices, or selfish characters?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's every campaign has to have motivation for evil characters, good characters, and neutral characters. So most of the best way to do that is money. In this case, the 50 gold piece reward, which is a lot of money for level 2 parties. But that's kind of, evil guys will take that, and of course say, hey, there's drugs there. And they're like, hey, maybe we can sell those drugs. So there's motivation there for evil characters. Neutral characters will want to do what's best. And what's best is stopping children being kidnapped, right? That's a pretty neutral thing to do. And good players, and maybe they're going to want revenge for Rosie because she's been kind of beaten up a bit. She's a little kid, so maybe they want to go and find out what's going on and put an end to it. So you got to have motivation for every alignment.
And lastly, you have here as a coven. Dewfinger may have been only a member of a coven of witches involved in a grand scheme, or only one of. Evidence of this could be placed on Dewfinger in the form of notes or other cryptic messages. And this is great because you as the DM, if you are running this adventure, you will hear your players have what's called table talk. They'll say, oh, that was really cool, or, oh, maybe we could sell the drugs, or, oh, all these bad magic users and all this, let's go hunt down witches, or if they say, no, the gnolls are a big problem. Your players many times can tell you what they're interested in by the things they talk about in the tone of their voice. Here, just with this mod, if you're paying attention as a DM, these are 3 different ways you could continue the story and keep your players engaged, and it'll still make sense and be a seamless transition from this mod into something else.
Yeah, that is something I felt was missing from a lot of adventure modules, was the way to merge it into your campaign or use it as a base for a campaign. It doesn't take long to write these kind of 3 little things. It's like half a day's work at most, and I think it adds a lot to the campaign to have these, or rather the module, to have these options.
And in the appendix here, you have the custom monster of Dewfinger, and I'm presuming then for things like Prack or small gargoyle. Are you presenting it this way because this is OGL, or was this
These are custom. These are custom
Okay.
stat blocks. So OGL stuff, I just reference. Let me give you an example. If you go up to area R8 on the map, it says free nulls, and nulls there is in bold.
Ah,
So that
yes.
means if it's in bold, it means look it up in the monster manual.
Okay.
Now I write MM next to it as well. If it's in the monster manual.
Okay. Or if it's in
So
Volos or something, do you reference that specifically?
we can't use anything from Volos.
Oh shoot, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, because it would have to be OGL for Monster Manual, and I don't think anything in Volos is.
Yeah, so I have a write DMG, MM, PHB, depending on where you have to look to find these stats or items, which isn't the case in this one, but it is in future from volume 3 onwards.
And it looks like here under license, it's almost like a big bibliography or a citations in a report where you're giving open credit to the OGL and
Yeah, you have to have that. You have to have
yeah.
that. And it has to be its own separate page. I get a lot of flack for having this big page with almost nothing on it. And people are like, oh, you're just trying to add page numbers, but it has to be its own page. That's just the law.
Well, there you all go out there in creation land. We touched on a little bit of the law and considerations. We touched on what it is to be a player character and a DM alike. And I would like to wrap it up kind of where we began. You introduced yourself and you talked a little bit about yourself. You do have a Facebook, which is Dragon Turtle Games.
Yeah.
You have a Twitter, which is Dragon Turtle G. I'm showcasing the tabs up here too.
Yeah, there were not enough characters for Dragon Turtle games.
Oh, gotcha. And you do have this Kickstarter still going. There's a little bit less than a month to go. And by the way, congratulations. It does look like it has been successfully backed and is continuing to receive support. So
yeah, thank you. It was funded on day 3, and now we're just kind of working towards the stretch goals. And the stretch goals are extra art, and if we reach £3,000, it's an illustration for each dungeon of maybe one of the rooms or one of the corridors or one of the traps being activated, so that you can show your players, hey, this is what's happening, or this is what this room looks like. And then obviously, if we reach £5,000, there's an extra adventure in there, so you get 5 adventures instead of 4.
And can these maps work in Roll20 or other virtual tabletops?
No,
Okay.
they can't. But I mean, I don't know. They're supplied separately as PNGs as well as in the PDF themselves. So maybe they can. I'm not too familiar with virtual tabletops.
Yeah, there's certain formats. It escapes me right now. Ivlon just popped on. Actually, Ivlon just got back from Avengers Infinity War. I trust you're not going to spoil anything, Ivlon, because I will destroy you, and I will make sure that there is no resurrection for your soul if anything gets spoiled about that movie. Yeah, I won't even offer you your soul the choice to come back.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that.
But that could be a suggestion to you. If you do include either a PDF or a PNG or something, people might be able to use this on virtual tabletops, and those do get broadcast. You were talking about this other your other mod being run on Twitch. Roll20 and Battlegrounds and some others are very popular mediums to broadcast, and this could be a good way for you. Like, this is your mod. I'm not telling you how to do your business, but this could be a good way to help encourage others to play your game.
Oh, so the real Dorgrim there says JPEG and PNG for Roll20. So yeah, they can work on Roll20.
Okay. Oh yeah. Hey, Dorgrim. Dorgrim is kind of like a living SRD for us here in the channel.
Okay, he's your system reference document.
Yeah, he is a living system reference document. And Dark Wolf is banning spoilers. Delcorn says everyone dies and Cobra wins. Oh my gosh, table flip.
Cobra.
So yeah, like G.I. Joe. So
yeah,
anyway,
I have the tier maps in it.
Oh, that'd be something. You know, this is not a spoiler of any kind, but in Ready Player One, there is a very iconic piece of art from Dungeons and Dragons that's featured several times throughout that movie.
Yeah, I don't know. Have you read the book of that?
Yes.
I was very disappointed that a lot of the Dungeons and Dragons stuff was taken out of the movie. In fact, about a third of the book is pure D&D, but not the movie. The movie is just in the background.
Yeah, the book is the book and is a book. The movie is the movie and it is a movie about pop culture references. There are similarities between the two, but if you expect the book, you won't get it, but I'm not necessarily saying that in a bad way.
The movie was good, but it was not the book.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the reason that we didn't have Blade Runner or D&D in the Ready Player One movie is because the D&D movie is in production and they couldn't get the copyright, obviously. And the same with Blade Runner. Blade Runner was in production at the same time, so they couldn't use D&D and Blade Runner, which is 2/3 of the book.
Are we? So we are getting another D&D movie?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they're working on. It's been in production for about 4 years now.
Does it have Jeremy Irons in it again?
I don't think so.
Oh, he was a good villain in the first one. I mean, look, say what you will about the first live-action D&D movie. Yeah, it was kind of cheesy, but whatever. You could really get into it, and I mean, Jeremy Irons is a great actor. But I'll have to look into this second one being produced. I imagine there's something on IMDb about it. So, all right. Well, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, I think it's the guy who directed Magic Mike, that stripper movie. The second one of those. I think he's the director. He appears in a lot of kind of D&D promotional stuff at the moment. Geek and Sundry stuff, and all of this stuff with Wizards of the Coast.
Well, I'll look into that, and I appreciate that. And I'll tell you, I think we'll take a break here. So it was amazing having you on. I really appreciate your input, your insight, and you sharing your story. And I hope that I do hope that this inspires people on their own to make their content, think about it in different ways. And also, I think this is a great study for those of you who are out there. If you want to support I'll say local in so much he's a part of our digital community. I mean, for many of us, he's across the pond. But if you want to support a local game manufacturer, and it sounds like someone who's not unreachable if you have a question about the content.
I'm very easy to reach. I run all the social medias for the whole company, which the company's not huge. So on Twitter, Facebook, or even on Twitch, you can message me, or on Discord, and I will get back to you within a day, most of the time.
So you want to talk about product support? There it is. It's just as Evelyn said in chat. So please check out Dragon Turtle Games. Any of his social medias, join his Twitch, get on board. You're helping one of us, and you're helping a small business, and you're helping a man who just started his family and who wants to live that dream of being an entrepreneur and striking it out on his own.
Yeah, well, this is my full-time job, so there's a lot of hours go into it. I would be honestly financially better off working at Starbucks, but that's not the point.
Yeah, I've been there too, brother. I know how that is. There's probably a lot of us that can relate. So, all right.
Yeah, you got to put in the early hours, the early years. Check out the Kickstarter if you want to kill your players. Well, not your players, you play characters. Don't kill your players. Really don't do that.
Yep. So that's Dangerous Descents here on Kickstarter. I'll put a link over in the Twitch as well. And yes, I think we'll take a break. If you want to go to bed, go to bed. You've earned it. Otherwise, you're welcome to lurk and answer questions that people might have. But we'll take a break, and we'll just go into this open part 3 that's discussion, or it could turn into some Vampire the Masquerade, or who knows what it'll turn into. But thank you again for your time today.
Well, I'm definitely going to go for at least a power nap. I'll probably be back at the normal time, which is in about 2 hours.
All right. Well, you rest up, brother. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
All right, everyone. That is it. I'm going to take a quick break myself. While I was taking a call from Dragon Turtle Games, I'm being called by nature, so I will be back in a minute, and I will continue the vicious cycle by maybe getting a big pitcher of water, because it is a slightly warm evening here. And give us 5 or 10 minutes, and we'll come back and have a part 3. Dun dun dun. Thank you, everyone.